Hi everyone, I'm here today with former Long Beach city manager, former three-time city manager, Ed Eaton. Ed, welcome. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
How did it feel not being able to retire?
Well, my plan was to retire when I was 55. And when I reached the age of 55, we weren't in the best financial shape, so I wasn't going to leave then. But a year and a half later, we were good, and I retired for the first time, and I was called back a couple of years after that, and then I stood until they got someone else. I stood, 10 months at that point. And then I left again, and then I got called back for another 18-month stint. And now I'm finally retired as of January 2008, and very happy about it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
When you say called back, what does that mean?
Well, the person, I guess, who succeeded me, the person who was there at the time, whether they weren't working out or whatever the case, or the person left of their own volition, they needed someone on an interim basis relatively quickly. So I guess I was the man with the experience.
And who does the calling?
It's the city council. The city council. I worked for the city council, the 5 elected members of the city council.
And when was the beginning of your first term?
July 1st, 1979.
And what kind of shape was the city in then?
Desperate. The city was in very bad shape. Would you like me to elaborate?
Yeah, sure. Please.
Well, I'll give a little historical perspective.
Please.
The city of Long Beach, of course, was a resort community, and during the 20s and 30s and 40s, it flourished. But during the 50s, and there's been some some question why, people stopped coming to Long Beach. People stopped coming to Rockaway. People stopped going to the Catskills and Niagara. I've been told the advent of the jet plane made it advantageous for people to get on a plane and go to more exotic locales.
Okay.
But Long Beach had a number of resort hotels that were empty. Well, about 1969, the Carey administration, Governor Carey was governor at the time, started a deinstitutionalization of their mental facilities. Their feeling was, take these poor folks, take our clients, and put them into a community environment. Well, where? Well, where were there a lot of rooms? Empty resort hotels. Long Beach.
Were these people who had been in places like Willowbrook?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And at the peak in 1980, fully 80% of Long Island's population, 80% of Long Island's population of discharged mental patients lived in the city of Long Beach. 2,000 people.
No kidding.
Not violent people, but poor souls that didn't quite know where they are.
They needed to be overseen.
They needed to be overseen. And, they would walk along barefoot in the winter in the streets, panhandle, urinate in the streets. And they didn't get the oversight that they should have gotten. The word dumped, that they were dumped into these facilities was predominant at the time. And in many cases, it was true. They had no medical supervision, no recreational facilities.
They had beds.
They had beds. They had an SSI check that the operators of some of these facilities, who were less than scrupulous, I have to say, took the SSI check and let the people ferret for themselves.
What kind of facilities ostensibly were these?
Well, they should have been nice facilities where people lived in a nice room, had food, medical supervision, but they didn't. And the city at the time, the city administration, I became city manager in July of 79. And in the decade of the 70s, there were 7 city managers prior to myself. There was no stability in government here. City councils changed every 2 years. And nothing got done. So many of these places were decrepit places. The building department should have been in there looking to see what kind of facilities were there, and the city didn't do it, so the city fell down on the job. And these places flourished. And this was part of Long Beach at the time. Long Beach is in a very affluent county, Nassau County, but there are poor people in Nassau County, people that need public assistance. Where do they live? They don't live in Manhasset. They don't live in Great Neck. They lived in Freeport, Hempstead, or the city of Long Beach. That's where Nassau County DSS put these folks. And we had a disproportionate amount of people that were on public assistance that lived in the city of Long Beach. So you see what's happening here. You have people living in substandard facilities, whether they're wards of the state, the discharged mental patients, or they're wards of the county that are on Department of Social Services, living in the city of Long Beach.
And I guess that this doesn't happen in a vacuum. That affects other aspects of the city and life in the city and real estate and schools and
Exactly. Well, the downtown commercial area in the city of Long Beach, between, let's say, Monroe Boulevard and Laurelton Boulevard on Park Avenue, looked like Beirut. Looked like Newark. Sorry, Newark, but it looked like downtown Newark. It wasn't very prosperous. You had, it just wasn't a. People drove through Long Beach just to get through Long Beach, not to stop here. Property values plummeted. People's houses weren't worth anything. So this is what you had at the end of the decade of the 70s.
and Long Beach has a reputation, or had a reputation, for racial strife, at least in the schools. At least, that's the sort of thing as a parent that I remember hearing about. How did that impact you, either in your public office or as a resident?
Well, when we came into office, that was existing in the city of Long Beach. It would be happening in the schools. It would be happening in our recreational facilities where everybody mingled together. And that's something that we had to deal with too. And it's not an easy question because you're appealing to the hearts of people. I grew up in the West End of Long Beach. I was a West End kid, and this is a fact of the matter. When I grew up in the West End, a black kid wouldn't go west of New York Avenue. Everybody lived in the West End was Irish, Roman Catholic, Italian. And so I became city manager, and I guess about the first 2 weeks I was in office, we had a riot at the recreation department, black and white. And I immediately suspended a lot of the kids from using the facilities, black and white. And I remember I went down to the West End, place where I grew up, and there was a group called the West End Neighbors, and they had a meeting about it. And that police had to come and get me out. Because I was a lover, I was this, I was that, and so on and so forth. And you have to be fair-handed about these matters. And if a black kid is wrong, he's wrong. If a white kid is wrong, he's wrong. And you take whatever actions necessary.
If you're fair-handed, one group or the other, and maybe both, will accuse you of being.
You make everybody unhappy. Of course, nobody's happy. So that was my baptism by fire, so to speak, in my first month in office with racial strife. And it improved over the years as we reached out to different aspects of the community, different people, and did different things that needed to be done that had been, postponed for so long that nobody had addressed. And we were able to do it because we were there, and there was some continuity in government at that point. It's not that we were so smart or so intelligent. It's just that we were there. So if you stay there long enough, you can accomplish something.
Well, okay. So what would you say are the biggest challenges, or were the biggest challenges of your career?
Well, when I started, and I'll have to go into the politics of the thing. Long Beach, of course, was a very political community and overwhelmingly Democratic. And the end of 1979, Long Beach was in very serious straits. So serious, in fact, that the Republican leader, John Scaduto was his name, and the Democratic leader, Jerome Fleischman, got together and formed a true coalition team to save the city, quote unquote. And they got elected, and my way of thinking, it's the best thing that ever happened in the city of Long Beach, because for a good 4 or 5 year period, politics was sort of held in abeyance. Everybody was working to save the city. And we worked with our federal officials, our state officials. Well, no matter what the political stripe was, everybody worked together to help the city. And I think that's what helped us turn the corner. One of the first things we had to go after, we felt, was the substandard housing in the city of Long Beach. And we made some pretty hard-headed, calculated decisions, and we were accused of racism and accused of being anti-poor and so on and so forth. We felt that Long Beach could not be the dumping ground for people of a lower socioeconomic level or for all of the discharged mental patients on Long Island. We ended up declaring war on the state of New York. We sued the state of New York because we felt that they abandoned their trust with their clientele here. We went after substandard housing. By going after substandard housing, we were throwing people essentially out into the street where they had to fend for themselves and move elsewhere. But we felt that was something that had to be done to save the city.
And I guess a way of looking at it is not so much that anyone's anti-poor, but if the poor are being housed inappropriately and unacceptably, and the quality of their life is such that it impacts them, that impacts the community, and so forth, that situation is not acceptable.
Exactly. And it's the odd thing is, by going after the substandard housing, we were inadvertently hurting the people who live there, because they were living in substandard facilities while we were trying to help them. Essentially, maybe we weren't helping them. We were making their life a little more difficult than it had to be.
But you're taking away their bed.
We're taking away their bed in a substandard place.
It's a crappy bed.
It's a crappy bed, but it's a bed. So it wasn't easy, but it was something we felt had to be done.